So today we're going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. We are now on episode 4 of the series. The last episode we saw a huge war happen right here with the Red Country. I mean, you could probably tell what happened. That was really it, but we also saw a bunch of exploration into southern Europe and, the Nile and Mesopotamia. The first event we have happening is what? We have some expansions in Iberia. Now, Galicia was they didn't participate in the war. They did send help to Portugal, so these guys are on friendly relations. And by help, I mean, money and stuff like that. And this is what Galicia does. They get all of that. The rest of Iberia is going to be filled in like this. Portugal is going to get this land. Pretty small area of land, and these borders need fixing. And the rest of this is going to go ahead and be taken by Spain. Now, Spain is a new country. They came out of the old Red Country. But these guys are very unstable. There's a lot of factions who want to do different things. Like these factions right here might want to go ahead and join up with these guys. Some factions in the north want to join up with, of course, Galicia. And then a lot of the country, like right here, I can't really simulate it, but like right here, some of these factions want to join up with Portugal. So we kind of see basically a sort of civil war happen. A lot of these areas along the Portuguese border are going to go ahead and rebel. These guys are basically just a bunch of clans who just don't like they want to be a part of Portugal. They don't like Spain. Now, Spain, their main government, which is it's mainly just populated areas, so that's just like this. They obviously hate this, but they're actually going to do something that's kind of probably smart, which is just put all their forces right here and not allow any other country to go there. So we do see forces up here in the north go ahead and rebel to join up with the Galicians, and they can't get past this. They get to the forces. They can't get past it because they're terrible at war. I mean, it's mainly just a bunch of groups. So we're gonna go ahead and see that Spain's gonna be like, okay, yeah, join up. This land isn't really valuable anyways. There might be some small towns here, but most of our population's right here. So let's go ahead and take a look at what happens here. So, of course, in the peace treaty, we see these respective areas going over to Portugal and Galicia, and we see that these countries are going along very nicely. They have a very special relation there, and both of these guys can agree on something. They want Numidia out of Iberia. They have Gibraltar. Neither of these guys like that, but we'll see what happens there in a later time in this video, because that is going to happen later in this video, just not now. We're going to see Carthage go ahead and make some moves. They're going to occupy all of Sardinia and Corsica, and then take a lot of the Italian peninsula until a sort of treaty happens. Now, the Blue Country, they're not too fond of the Venetians. However, oh well. So what we see happening is the Venetians taking all of that, and the Carthaginians take the rest. And honestly, these borders are looking pretty nice. But what we also see happening is that the Carthaginians are going to make a colony in the Balearic Islands, as well as Catalonia. And the Iberians, Portugal and Galicia, start to realize Numidia and Carthage, and maybe even more in the future, are taking land out of their peninsula, and they start to get really angry. So what's going to happen is Portugal and Galicia are going to start the first coalition war against Numidia. I don't know why I said the first, because this is probably going to be the only coalition war, at least for now. Of course, they start invading the Iberian portions, and, they do get to the coastline. However, these areas are pretty populated, and they are getting assimilated into the culture of Numidia. However, it's not as easy as it sounds. So they're going to be expelled out of here. But what we do see happening is Numidia pretty much calling a huge division. I won't be doing generals because that's for like the bigger wars, but we do see a huge division pop up, and they start putting heavy pressure on the Portuguese occupied areas, and eventually some areas start rising up in favor of joining back with Numidia. We see that Portugal is going to kind of escape back, and eventually these areas come right back under the ownership of Numidia, and they start taking more land rapidly, and they start invading into Portugal. Eventually, we see this coalition ending and in favor of a Numidian victory. It's not like an extreme victory, but just know that the Portuguese are going to lose land here. But we see that with Numidia gaining a lot of land in Portugal, we see that Galicia and Portugal are going to have a huge rivalry with the Numidians, and this probably will last for a long time. In other news, we see Egypt is collapsing. Basically, there has been a huge divide in Egypt for a long time between the southern Nile people, which really revolve around here, and the northern Egyptians. So what we see happening is basically the Nile areas in the south particularly decide to start rebelling, and immediately the small amount of people living here are going to immediately join up with the Nilans, having a better connection with them. Now, the northern Egyptians aren't going to let this slide. They're going to send their army down into the Nile, taking as much land as possible, especially here near the Red Sea, little like bay or gulf, or I don't even know what that is. But near the Nile, the southern Egyptians have the most success, and the northern Egyptians are going to retreat, and they retreat into a line that looks like this, and eventually we're going to see a peace treaty. Basically, in the peace treaty, we see that the Nilans are independent now. They're a new independent state, and there's really nothing to say. I don't know what to do about this. Capital's going to be right there. So now we can see that the northern Egyptians, or the old Egyptians, are pretty weak. I mean, they're not pretty weak. They're actually still pretty populated in the north here. However, to gain momentum and to roll up their steam, they're going to have this country join up with them. The Sinai country, whatever you want to call it, is going to join up with the northern Egyptians, proving that these guys are not just some sad little fellers, even though this country had a very low population. And that means Israel is starting to, they want this. Before they do that, they're going to meet up with the Red Sea so that Egypt can't expand anymore. Israel doesn't really care about Egypt right now. They're just kind of focused on their own adventures, which includes going along the Arabian coastline. Now, I probably should not just call this Israel, considering it also has, Palestine, Jordan, and Lebanon. But this is not Palestine or Israel from real life, so I don't really think anyone would care. But specifically, what we see happening is a couple of nations are going to form up on the Black Sea. We're going to see a brown nation form up in the coastline of Bulgaria, a greenish country right here on the Odessa coastline, as well as Romania. A purple Crimean country is going to form up, as well as a blue nation in the heart of Bulgaria near Sofia. These countries are fairly weak. They were mostly just tribes that evolved into civilizations. And Anatolia is going to see this, and they're going to expand more into the Macedonian regions of Greece. But what we see happening is we see Tripolitania go ahead and finally make their colony in Crete. They've been waiting to do this for a long time, and they finally got their settlements up here, and they make a colony in Greece as well, connecting up with the Turkish. We see the Carthaginians making another kind of outpost in Albania, as well as on the coast near Croatia and Bosnia. We see a couple French nations forming up. We see an Orange Brittany country form up, which also hugs the coast near Normandy and Dunkirk. A light pink nation form up right here. These nations are also weak, just like these ones on the Black Sea. However, this country in Brittany and Normandy is actually decently strong, and they're going to go ahead and discover England. But explorers are going to venture off over here where they probably shouldn't and go into Germany. Eventually, this huge area is discovered, and even over here in Austria, they connect up with Venice, leaving the Alps undiscovered and not traversed yet. And suddenly, a purple Germanic nation near Hamburg forms up. They are also kind of in the Netherlands right here. And of course, they devolved from the Normandy country, who is now going to set up their colony in Cornwall. Suddenly, countries around the world start to realize that the age of exploration is kicking off. As lots of areas in Europe are discovered, such as Poland, we have the Baltics getting discovered, along with parts of Belarus and Russia. And Ukraine also starts to get discovered. Over here in India, we actually see people going through and making an adventure. Now, some people stay over here in the UAE and Oman. However, most people are going to go ahead and go all the way here to India until they realize they see, hundreds and, I don't know about hundreds, but dozens of rivers in India. And they also see that this is a very fertile area to live. Very easy areas for farming and just to live in general. So two things are going to happen. Number one, an Indian nation in Gujarat is going to form up. But number two, we see a Emirate country pop up. This is the United Arab Emirates country. They hog the coast of the United Arab Emirates as well as Qatar and Oman. And this guy is kind of angry, Syria. He's angry. So he's going to expand deeper and double or kind of triple his size of his country as he wants to gain glory. This guy is going to continue to expand into Mesopotamia. However, they're going to stop once they realize the explorers might want to rebel. And rebel they do as they move up over here. And they make their Azerbaijan country in Baku and just the coast of Dagestan. This nation right here is going to go ahead and join up with Numidia. This area really, they only declared independence to become part of Numidia. So they formed a country for a bit and then joined. And for the last main event of today's video, I will add a couple countries in, Europe and even maybe some other areas like Mesopotamia. But for the last main event, we're going to turn off the rivers. And what is going to happen, you might have seen this coming, you probably didn't though. The countries of Carthage and the Tripolitanians are going to unite into the Punic Union. It's the strongest country in the world. But that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you enjoyed, leave a like on the comment and say your goodbyes or whatever. But anyways, bye.